Good evening, everyone. It's the March 9th meeting of the Board of Sewer Commissioners, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. The roll call,
Malcolm
Peter.
White.
Dunlop.
Mac,
Malcolm White.
and Sandy,
Sandy Slavin.
and Jim Gibberti. Okay, so we have 4 sewer commissioners present. We have minutes only from January 26th.
I have read them. I had issues with them. I responded with my issues. I copied everybody on them, so I do not believe they're ready to be approved. And Jimmy, I have been asking for the last 2
Wait a minute,
meetings.
just stop right there, okay? We have meeting minutes that are outstanding, which I'm aware of. There's been a lot of emails back and forth on those. They're being worked on, and as we get them all together, they will hopefully be presented, finalized as much as can be done at the next meeting.
Well,
Okay.
I have asked that the outstanding minutes be posted on our agenda so the public knows what minutes have not been submitted. I
Well,
keep
I
asking.
forgot to post them. I forgot to tell her to do that. That was my fault, if you want to blame somebody.
Can you please put them on the next agenda?
All right, the
of the
next
minutes
agenda,
that we
at the
know-
next agenda, I hope to have the minutes to be approved. And any that aren't will be listed.
So I'm just, for the record, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We are now missing 8 minutes.
Okay, we already discussed that. Then we'll
All
bring
right,
it- It'll be up. That's enough of that.
All
Okay?
right, I'm making a
We will-
request and I'm being
Yeah.
ignored.
Well, for the reason. Okay, we have Russ Cleatcamp and Guy Campina with us. And I'd like to see where we are with this gallonage. I don't feel that we should be doing anything with it at the moment. I don't know where it came from. No. Russ, could you
Sure.
tell us why we're all of a sudden looking at 50,000 gallons?
Sure. The shorter
Okay.
answer is there's been a lot of money invested in improvements at the treatment facility. Those improvements are very close to completion, if not complete. The major improvements were the installation of 2.7 million gallons of equalization through 2 additional line basins, the extra series of D-night filters, and also a 5th covered basin. Those were the recommendations. If you rewind the clock about, I think it was June of 2021 or thereabouts, the WPCF was having multiple overflows that are against the permit. This was acknowledged. This was, okay, what are you going to do about that? At that time, the WPCF had no plan in place to determine the path moving forward. Since that time, there's been quite a bit of work done. So now that we can better manage the wet weather overflows through the multi-million-dollar improvements, we feel that it will be a very low risk to the town if you start adding in gallons and keeping cognizant that we need reserve capacity for the I&I that led us to the problems a few years ago when we did have higher water tables, weather was not on our side, but we didn't have a crystal ball. We couldn't see 2 or 3 years into the future. We didn't know that it would be drier times between the flows to the plant actually going down the last few years because I&I has been less. We feel that although there's always the possibility of a plant overflow if the weather conditions are correct, that we have sequestered the frequency quite enough. Whereas now, if you did have an overflow and DEP said, let's put it this way, before 2 or 3 years ago, if you had an overflow, DEP is going to say, what are you doing about it? There was no plan in place. There was nothing to, so it could be looked at, let's say, with potential for a consent order, something like that. And that was a discussion at the commissioners' meetings at the times in the past. It's definitely something that you don't want to go under a consent order. So now if we did that small case where, say, we did have an overflow, the town can say with a straight face that we have invested. We have engineering documents saying that we've sized it to an appropriate size within the feasible storm range. and that we are moving forward with the comprehensive wastewater management plan. A lot of this, if you remember back, there was always talk about 80% of the flow would trigger this plan, right? This thing that we have to do, this plan. When the flows were higher a few years ago because of the higher groundwater, we were skirting this 80% level. That was borderline, making us have to act on this plan. Since the groundwater levels receded a little bit, the flows have dipped under the 80%. This has been a constant trend. This has been a couple of years now, so it's not like we had one lucky year. And again, groundwater tables don't rise overnight. So, apologies, I lost my train of thought there for a moment. I'm sorry, but in lieu of that plan, that 80%, this is exactly what the comprehensive wastewater management plan is that we're doing now. It's going to be completed this year. So we've crossed all the T's and dotted the I's with regards to what I want to say, any concern of a high degree for an overflow. So that's exactly why we're saying now 50,000 gallons by the time that should get us through potentially this year, the foreseeable future. And when that comprehensive wastewater management plan is complete, that will give a detailed outline for the next 20 years, identifying the future flows, for the entirety of the town. How are we going to treat us? Where are we going to discharge it? So on and so forth. Hopefully that was somewhat long-winded, but did I explain somewhat?
Except for the fact that if I remember reading correctly in the thing you put out, one of the reasons for this, or you mentioned, is because of the drought that we had, but that's not necessarily something that's going to continue. And I understand the groundwater takes a while to increase. Are we not leaving ourselves a little open by jumping into this 50,000 gallons right now and not giving it an opportunity to find out whether or not that really is a valid number?
We hope the number's higher. That's a conservative number. So I don't believe we've had a few years to look at the groundwater is one of a few factors. The other big factors are the physical improvements that have been invested and done. That's exactly why you do these, is to open up a certain range of capacity. There's a few other parts of the plant that are still not performing well. And that's what we're going through and addressing with this year's, this large project we're doing for the headworks clarifier, so on and so forth. So again, engineers are conservative by nature. So we feel that if you want to utilize every drop of that 50,000, feel free. How you utilize it, what order, that's policy. That's for the commissioners to discuss.
Okay, the overflow basins that we put in were to put there for emergencies.
Correct.
And what has been our frequency of usage of them since they've been in? Do you know offhand? I do not.
For emergencies, we haven't had any. They do come in handy for day-to-day operations when you need to move product from one area to another. And again, we've had, since they've been put in, there's been construction going on in that immediate area with the D-night filters, and we've really been hamstrung by it's just been ongoing construction. So it's a really good milestone that's this portion of the job's actually complete. I would say that we caught a good year and a half of construction weather-wise to do this. There were some vulnerable times in there when certain pipes were cut and things were being installed in there, but we got through, and here we are. I see a few more hands raised.
Commissioners, do you have any comments? Peter?
Yes, Russ. So you say the three reasons that we've got this, the basins, the fact that the groundwater's down, and the fact that the comprehensive wastewater management plan is in place. Would you care to say what percentage each factors into this?
It would be very difficult, but if I were to say, I would be strictly making a number up. But what I can say confidently is those are the three major items that have allowed us, or will allow the town, in the event if there ever was an emergency, the town can say with a straight face to DP, we're doing every single thing we can. And within months or within the year, we're going to have the plan done. We have a major part of construction done. I'm going a little off track, but to answer your question, Commissioner Dunlop, the basins themselves, the 2.7 million, that gives you a lot of management capacity right there. INI is a major, a major contributor to this, and we've also put in some major upgrades. The plan itself is more of an administrative item to keep you out of the administrative trouble with DEP. So maybe thinking about it a little more between the reduction in flows and then looking at the major improvements. You can start with 50-50. I'm sure it goes one way or another a little bit. But those are the two major physical reasons, the improvements and then the lowered flows.
So you don't put an awful lot of into the ground, the groundwater being down. It has a dry year.
Yeah, it's been down. The flows have been down. I want to say roughly 100,000 gallons a day, something like that. I'd have to go back and look at the actual, but they have been lower to the point where we're not.
How do you measure these flows? I mean, do you?
When the plant is required to measure these flows and report them to DEP and EPA.
Where do you measure?
At the effluent.
I mean, do you measure it at the input or the output?
I believe both. That's it, Guy, if you're there and want to chime in on that, but.
So we have meters on both ends
That is correct.
and they're working?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Russ, you made a comment about the INI is down. Is there any thing you can point to on why it's down?
The
Or
weather,
is it just the weather?
groundwater. Yeah.
Groundwater?
When that
Okay.
groundwater comes up, everything goes up with it. So again, it ties into the discussions, sump pumps and all this stuff. It's yeah, I mean, it's the weather is why the ground, I mean, that's the answer.
Sandy, did you?
Yes, my question, Russ, you mentioned to the wastewater comprehensive plan. I didn't think that was completed.
It's not.
Okay. And do you have a time frame for when we might be able to review it?
Yes, in fact, you'll have multiple opportunities to review before it's even a draft. I
No,
mean, there's
A
public-
time frame.
definitely
1
it's
year,
going to be.
2 years?
We're shooting to have it finalized this year, which means drafts will have to be well in advance of this year. My boss hates it when I answer questions on the fly. I want to say that hopefully a draft will be completed within 6 months. We want it is on our radar as a priority project to get this done for the town. A lot
Okay,
is
so
hinging on this.
we're looking at the fall
Yes,
for a review of at least a portion of it in a draft form.
if not sooner, but yeah, fall. It's one of our top priorities because we know how much the town, we need to have a path moving forward.
Now, is there a chance we can review as each piece or section is done as opposed to waiting for the final?
I think there certainly is. Let me speak with the project manager and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to review in piecemeals as opposed to waiting to the final 100+ pages.
it'll be more than that, but understood totally. Well, yes, let me talk, Commissioner Slavin with the project manager and I will report back to Guy and we'll make sure that you get it in appropriate.
Thank you.
places.
Anybody? Mac?
Oh, no comment. You touched on everything.
Okay.
Did you need me in attendance? For there any items further down on the meeting?
Mm. One second, Russ.
Sure.
Please. No, I think that'll hold it for the moment. I'm sure we're gonna have more for you at a later
All right,
point.
so cell phone is on. Just text me if you need to rejoin.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russ.
That's my cleaning towel.
Okay, if there's no other questions or comments on the gallonage, we'll take and go off of this. We don't have anything here for to do a vote or anything on at the moment. I was trying to get validity behind the numbers and find out if there are numbers that we can actually work with and do something with currently, or should it be postponed for a time
Do you
frame.
want to do anything on the moratorium then?
We're not there.
Okay, good,
No,
fine,
but,
fine,
I
fine,
mean-
totally agree, no problem.
That's, unless somebody else has got something to add to that. Sandy, do you, Mac?
You're not there.
I didn't think so. Thank you.
So we will be having to discuss at one point how we are going to allocate or what determines someone eligible for the allocation. That's still coming, correct? Yes. Yep. I answered my own question.
Okay, keep talking, ask more questions and answer them, and we'll just wait.
And
I thought that
get
was very
back to
good.
us at another date.
We had this discussion, multiple hookups to one lateral, like different owners. So we have the situation that you responded to, Sandy. Thank you. On where we have laterals with more than one person feeding into it, but that goes into a forced main.
Yeah, we chose to do that with the development off of Minot Ave.
Right.
So that we have fewer breaks into the force main by
Yeah, I forgot
sharing.
about that.
So we physically made that decision when we approved those projects on Minot Ave.
Guy, do you have any input you can offer regarding these multiple hookups into one lateral? Any direction we can go in this? I have talked with Mr. Bowen, and he is going to get back to me on what his feeling is on it, but I don't, because at the moment I don't have a specific one.
I don't either. The projects, example, High Street, we did a project, and Main Street, the projects done by Nazi, they have one lateral always been there. We required multiple manholes to address spikes, or if you will, peak flows. What if everybody flushed their toilet at the same time?
Mhm.
Where does that flow go? We also made them increase the 6-inch pipe to the street to an 8-inch pipe. So that gives us, again, more capacity. That's what we're doing. The ones we're talking about, the three, I showed you some pictures across from the town hall. There's 3 homes on one lateral. One home is plugged. I'm not getting involved, but I'll let them fight it out. There's another one on Union Street in Onset. It's all gravity, 3 houses to one. One's plugged. They're fighting over who's going to fix it. I'm not going to get involved. The one that on 140 Minot Ave is at the corner by the fire station. It used to be Slay Home's TV shop. And that particular project is already a couple apartments, and it's an office space, and they want to convert the office space into 2 one-bedroom apartments. And then that flows into the fire station, and then it flows into the lateral for the package store, which has apartments. And also across the street, there's a home that has a grinder pump that shoots it into that also. So the question became, and it's moot now because there's no gallons available. So it's an active building permit that we have not answered. So we just won't answer it, and it'll stay where it is, and nothing will happen. So it becomes moot. So it's really not worth discussing.
Okay.
I know of the properties on Minot Ave that have that tied in, like the school has a pump station, their own pump station. Brandy Hill has their own pump station. The old one down by Great Neck Road has its own pump station. The condos down the road have their own pump station. There's a private home. He was an engineer, Mr. Nolan. He has his own pump station. So those we know about, and they're all there. And the thing about those, they have their pump stations that they're responsible for, they maintain. So it's nothing to do with us. So it works well. But this particular case, they're all private homes on their own lots, all, intertwined into one lateral. So that's, but again, I'll summarize and say, there's no gallons available. So to address 140 is moot. So it's really a moot. It's just now we can think about it and decide if it is an issue. If I had my druthers, I'd make them put manholes because of all that flow. I've got 2 bedrooms. I've got a fire station that really doesn't do any flow. I've got a 3 or 4 bedroom home that across the street. I've got a package store business with apartments over. What if they all flush at the same time, all relying on 6-inch pipes? I don't know. So that's what I would do if I had my drillers. I'd make them put, I would request or whatever to put manholes to handle that surge. Other than that, there's nothing we could do. So that's all I have on that. Thank you.
Okay. Sandy, Mac, Peter? Peter?
That's fine on the new hookups. But from what we learned the other day, particularly in the Swift Beach area, we heard where what you had been a garage had now been converted into a cottage. And the cottage and the main house are on the same lateral. How do we deal with those? And aren't we
No,
screwing ourselves out of an EDU?
no, when we realize or find out, so to answer your question, yes, if it's not reported to us, if somebody doesn't go through the building process, if somebody doesn't do the permitting process, then we
Yeah, but
have
they
no
very
idea.
well may have back
So-
then, Guy. But then
I
they sold the
don't know.
property off.
Yeah, so it may have to be door-to-door knocking. Hey, can I see what you got? Like a assessor would do, or a census taker. We don't know. We can see Google Earth shows you everything. We can see the multiples and we can look it up and say, oh, wow, we don't have it. And send letters. Short of that, I really don't know. You'd have to actually go personally investigate, knock on doors, find out, and that's not going to happen. You're not getting into homes, you don't know. But again, if they're there, Peter, I would suggest that it's their problem. If it backs up, don't call us. You know, you guys handle it. You've done it. Take care of it. It's on your property. I don't know the long term, but the EDU is a concern. I agree with you. It's revenue.
Hey, Guy, the one you mentioned previously, are they required to do engineering or they just tell you they're gonna hook it up?
They don't do engineering. They hook it up. We don't have engineering requirements for hooking up to sewer. You know, it's pretty straightforward stuff. However, and to Peter's point, you go to Onset, I've done some in Onset, there's 3-4 houses tied up. Because back in the day, these lots, these small lots, people for summer, there were a lot of summer properties. They would put multiple homes on one property and all the family would come down. The law allows them to section homes and create non-conforming lots, and then that's where the issue comes in. So yeah, there's tons of them. They're all over the place, and they all tied into that one single lateral, and it's been done years and years and years ago. Today, you have to pull a permit to do anything with sewer. So we would look at it and say, you know, no, you're not doing that. But everything everything we're getting today is after the fact. People having problems are asking us to resolve them. I don't know if that's exactly where you're going, but it just goes on and on and on.
So are we saying, Guy, that wait until we have a problem and then we'll help resolve them, but we'll correct it to the way we want it?
Well, I don't know what we're saying. Again, the sewer commissioners have I would suggest action over the sewers. Do we allow it? We don't allow it. Anything that happened in the past, Peter, I guess we own, right? We own it. It's there. It's existing. It is what it is. I think going forward, we have to think about it. And if let's say you had two homes and
going
sold the
forward
back
is
one,
easy.
yeah. It's just going forward,
is
but going
easy,
back, yes.
But
I don't know. I
going
think it
back,
would be individual cases. You know what I mean? Take it one case at a time, try to rectify it, help the best we can. But I don't know if we should be responsible. I don't know. I don't know. That's the conundrum. I think Mr. Bowman can weigh in on that. Yeah, again, it's when you have a blockage. You know, I bought your back house, you had two, you sold it to me, and now I have a blockage. I come to you and say, well, that's your problem. I have a problem. We did it in Indian Neck. There was two houses, one sewer line. They had septic tanks. We put sewer in there, and there had to be an easement because it was a common driveway. And if that easement wasn't granted, that person couldn't fix their pipe. So an easement had to be granted to give access to the back property to work on the pipe if it had to be worked on. So that's all I'm saying. Maybe they say, okay, listen, we'll provide an ability for you to fix it if you had to. That's the best I can do. If it's the same owner, Peter, I think it's a no-brainer, right? Because the same owner, they own it, they do their thing. But it's
Yeah.
when you divide it and have two separate owners on that one lot is when it becomes problematic.
Yeah, all right, so it sounds like we hope they have a problem and then deal with them individually.
I hate to say it that way, but we don't know about them until they happen, right? And how do we find
Exactly.
out? You know what I mean? So you're right.
Yeah,
I agree
otherwise
with you.
you're playing show detective.
Yeah, that's a
no,
fair
I see your
statement.
point. Okay,
I agree with you.
Okay, any other,
I have nothing more, Jim.
okay, any other, Sandy, Mac?
No, all set.
All
Okay,
set.
could we, sewer superintendent's report, but first of all, did you got that note on 67 War Avenue, guy?
Yes, 67. That's the one that they want to know about. I believe they wanted to know about,
Yeah, it's taken over by the
Billing.
bank or something.
yeah, HUD took it over and they want
Right,
to know the
yeah.
bill. They want explanation. They asked, what is a demand? I had to
Yeah.
look up the word. I didn't want to give them the wrong answer. I look, I said, well, here's what a demand is. But I referred him to Treasurer Collector because that's their terminology, demand, interest,
Yep.
penalty. So I thought it'd be best answered by John's department than me. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. And
Yep.
we forward it. Okay, report. The denitrification filters training was today. They're online working. We have 6 now instead of 3. It'll be ongoing training. Our permit season starts in April. Now we'll put them through the paces and make sure they can reduce the nitrogen the way they're supposed to. And next week we have training on the new EQ basin, the covered basin. There's training on that next week. To how to operate the control panel, et cetera, et cetera. So that'll be online. It's online now, but we haven't been trained. Right now, it's being handled by the contractor. And as his contract runs out and he leaves, then we'll assume responsibility. So we're trying to get all the training, all the glitches, everything worked out before we accept responsibility for it. Sorry about that. So that is what's going on with that right now. Again, I think I mentioned that Liberty Mobile Homes, or as we know it as Great Hill Mobile Home Parks, are cranking pretty quick to get online. I got a call from the contractor. 20 immediately went on that were gravity. He's working another, I think it was 36, 40, I forget the exact number, that'll be grinder pumps. What he suggested to me was that after this first phase is done, Liberty may sell the park. And once it's sold, I don't know what's going to happen. The question was, do we have a mandate? Does the Board of Health have a mandate? I talked to Patrick at the Board of Health, and he may want to put something because they have every septic system in that park has failed. So to let them sell it under those conditions may not be fair to the owners. I'm not so sure that's the call by Patrick. I told them that we have no mandate, and if they feel they're not going to do it, then give us back our gallons. I don't know if that's good or bad, so I ran it by Patrick, and I'm waiting for him to weigh in because, again, they have failed systems, sewer's available, and the DEP would rather have them into sewer than into septic systems. The DEP has been bugging us as a community to sewer all our trailer parks, especially West Wareham. They're failing like crazy up there, and they're attacking the Weweantic River. And we all know that the Weweantic River is, I think it's called the 303. It's an impaired water body. And so all that groundwater discharge from the bad septic systems that go into without treatment adds to the impairment. So I don't have a definitive answer. We're bringing in the DEP to weigh in and see where we go from there. So as I get more information, I'll let you know. But that's where we are with Great Hill. So that being said, we talked about Kendrick. Kendrick was marginal at best when we first talked about Great Hill many years ago, and now we're realizing what they were saying. So we'll figure it out. But Kendrick, we had decided, I think 2 years ago, GHD was doing a looking at the ability to put an interceptor, a 15-inch interceptor. It's a pipe 15 inches that would go from the Kendrick pump station to the Thatcher pump station and would act as a collection system under the ground. So that design is, they're working through that design. I saw a preliminary of it today. We'll have it finalized and presented to the board as an option to address not only that flow from Great Hill, but any future flow from the industrial park that may or may not happen. We don't have any idea. The town has not given us any idea, and we're trying to get it for our comprehensive wastewater management plan. But what's the future for the industrial park? What's the future growth potential? I have no concept. So when you start doing this type of work, you're working in the blind, because is it going to be present and never change? I'm sure they thought that many years ago when they built that small pump station. So we're asking the town for some input to help us decide how big we may want to go. 18 inches in the interceptor to give us that much more, if you will, retainage. So it acts as a wet well. So now instead of a 1,200 gallon wet well, that's all we have now. Maybe we have our 15,000 gallon wet well. So now all those surges that come in, we can handle them without overwhelming the pump station and overflowing it. So that's, when I get that finalized, you folks will, Russ will present it to you, GHD will present it. I forget who the project manager is, but it'll be presented. And then from there, you can decide if it's something we should do. I think the budget for that would be about $1 million, and we figured to replace Kendrick would be about $1.5 million. So it's kind of equal. So you can decide if you think that it's best to replace Kendrick. That's an option too, because Kendrick is not only antiquated, it just can't handle the flow. Plus, if we do the intercept, it gives an opportunity to take a pump station offline. So we're working through that too. So you guys will be in that and make the final decisions which way to go. So we'll present that at a later date. I will present the budget. We're finally done. I've got the numbers for ours, the in-kind service insurances, et cetera, I have them. So I'll give you the final. We looked at the preliminary many months ago, but none of it was real. Now it's real. So I'll submit it to the next meeting. You can look at the real numbers. Those are probably, and I'll double check with Mr. Sullivan, but I believe those are the exact numbers that will go to town meeting. So you'll be able to see it well before town meeting and discuss it. The narrow force main. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm going to ask, what do you have in there for capital planning?
Nothing. Remember, we did, I think it was your suggestion to take capital planning and put it into categories and not having capital planning. You're talking about capital, right? Or you're talking about capital planning for that separate committee?
Are you planning to put any capital into the sewer plant next year for your budget?
No capital. We put it, like another example, we used to put capital to do generators, whatever. Now we put it on the equipment line. It's built in. So if I was going to do a generator, put it on the equipment line, I wouldn't put.
We'll talk about this, but a generator is a capital item, not, never mind. That's another
capital planning.
That's another
I buy
topic.
pumps for, I buy pumps for $80,000. They're not going capital, they go into the equipment. I think, actually, I thought it was your suggestion to not.
A generator is not 80,000.
Okay, we can bandy the verbiage around. Can bandy the verbiage around later.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know if there's a number, Sandy, but anyways, it goes to capital planning for you guys to get on your planning, but it goes into the budget. Everything goes into the budget. So I'll get that to you. Mr. Sullivan has it now and he's finalizing numbers. I think in-kind service finalized, our obligation to insurance, all that stuff is all finalized. And so we'll get it over to you and then you'll be able to critique it and see what you want to do with it. Narrows. I mentioned narrows. The issue with narrows is we have the liner that we're going to put back out to bid. So while we're doing that, we get an email from another company called CPM that says they have a Chinese liner exactly the same, but for a lot less money. So we started, I mean, I don't know much about it. So I looked into it and somebody told me, well, the Chinese do good at knockoffs. They can do a good knockoff first, etc. So I wanted to dismiss it, but I can't dismiss it. So before we put it back out to bid, the engineers are doing the research and they'll present it to the board to see if it's legitimate. If it's a legitimate equal, then absolutely. If it's not a legitimate equal, I don't want it to sneak in. and we get something for half price. We're happy because we saved a lot of money, and we have failures. So right now, we're doing the vetting before we put it back out to bid. We know that the Primus has been vetted, and we know it's been all over the country. We know that it's worth it. We get all that, but this new equal knockoff, we don't know. And so we want to vet that to make sure if it's real or not, and then we'll move forward. So that presentation will be in front of the board also. Then you can finalize and say, do we want it or we do not want it? And then we'll move forward. Now the engineers present their findings of what their research is. I think I sent an email that Woonsocket's down. They had solid spill to the river, and the state of Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management is asking them to restrict their ability to take in flow. So they have. So we haven't had a tank. We got one yesterday, Wednesday. Today's Thursday, Wednesday, and that's the first one we saw in a week. And normally we do 2 to 3 a day. So what it means is that we're minimizing our wasting. We're minimizing septic receiving. We can't make any solids because I have no place to put them. I cannot get rid of them. So we've got to do things that that don't generate solids. We generate a lot of solids just in the process, but nitrification, full-time nitrification with an earnest doesn't start to April 1st. So I'm hoping they rectify it by April 1st, which I believe is a few weeks away, because we really make a lot of solids start in April because our process takes off. We start nitrifying, denitrifying. We have to have more mass, which is more biological, and all activated sludge is bacteria. And sometimes we don't need it all, so we waste it. We recycle it to use it to handle the food coming into the plant. So that's when we really get active, and we make a lot of it, and we'll have to get rid of it. So we're hoping that Woonsocket will be online before then. And that's pretty much it. I know Maine has the same problem. They're looking at opening up so folks can put sludge back on farms. I don't have any local farms. Yeah.
Don't we make sludge every single day from the normal processing?
That's what, yes, absolutely. And it gets more in April.
So-
We make more because it's yeah. So we
So
keep
what do
it
we
longer.
do?
But Guy, I believe there's a process that has to go through to handle the sludge that Sandy's looking for. For this,
What do you mean,
what
in
you're
the sludge
talking about using it
thickener?
as a fertilizer or ground cover, whatever they do with it up in Maine.
Yeah, we don't have that yet. Massachusetts has different rules.
Right.
Okay, I thought we were
We're
gonna
looking at
try
it.
to dry it to reduce the weight. What happened to that?
Well, we were going to, at one time, we looked at a screw press to
Right.
take up more water. But landfills closed. So we don't have any landfills. This has been a problem for 5 or 6 years. We talk about problems the federal government does and the state does, but nobody does anything. We kick things around. We've been discussing the lack of disposal. We've been discussing PFAS and all the issues for the past 8 years. And we're still discussing them. And we'll probably discuss for another 5 years, and we'll come to no resolution. And
So
I don't
what
know
do
what
we,
to say.
what do we do with the sludge we produce every single day? Are we just holding them in tanks?
We're tanking it. Our
wait.
clarifier is
So-
rising. Yes,
Ask, the question is, the sludge that we produce every day is we're putting them into tanks, waiting for a place to dispose. So how many
That's
tank
correct.
trucks do we have full of sludge trying to find a home?
2.
So we
We
have
have 2 more to go.
trucks. We have 2 trucks on site that are
No, 2
doing
tanks,
nothing,
not
2 tanks.
2 tanks. They're tanks. They're
How many more tanks?
78,000 gallon
Oh,
tanks.
God. How many more tanks do you have on site that you can use until you run out?
2.
So we have a total of 4 tanks that we can hold sludge until we can find a disposal place.
That's correct.
And how long will that take? At what point will we exceed our ability to store sludge in a tank?
We're thinking 10 days, we're done. And Woonsocket called us, so they really
and-
believe they'll be up and running by then. So we're hoping they're right.
I guess if they're not, what happens to our processing if
don't
we
know.
have no place to put that brown stuff?
I don't have an answer. Just goes to the river would be the short answer, but
I
I
don't
don't have
want,
that answer.
okay,
Well, I don't want it either. I hear you. We're working, Sandy. I agree with you 100%. But let me tell you this, I can't turn a valve to stop flow. I wish I could. I wish I could say to the residents, you know, we have an issue, stop flushing today. You know
No,
what I
you
mean?
can
So
flush-
I don't have an answer for you, Sandy.
you can flush liquids. But here's the question for you.
Yeah,
What contingency have you put in place to handle our sludge once we've filled all 4 tanks? Do we have any backup
Right now,
plans?
The only backup plan I have is to rent frac tanks and keep them coming and just keep filling frac tanks. And
So
when I
that
get
is-
to that point, then that's a plan. I will keep pulling frac tanks. I'll keep
Okay,
getting
that,
frac tanks, Sandy.
okay, what there is a plan to handle the sludge once our 4 tanks are full. Okay, I hadn't
Right.
heard you talk about a contingency if Woonsocket doesn't open. Okay,
That absolutely. And I think we're all doing it, not just me, because Woonsocket handles most of New England. So we're all talking, we're all trying to figure out, and there's a limited amount of frac tanks. So we're talking about who needs them more importantly. So there's probably 40 treatment plants discussing the very same thing, because we're all in the same boat. And all of us are scared, crapless. All of us don't know what's going to happen, and we're all struggling. So yes, and so we share our misery and we share our plans. But there is
Okay.
contingency plans.
Okay, yeah,
So-
Max had his hand up. Max,
Yeah, hey, Matt.
No, I'm fine. Sorry.
okay, all right. Sandy,
I just wanted to, what happens if we can't get those additional storage units? What happens to
I'm
the
thinking
plant? if
maybe
we
I'll
can't
take-
get rid of-
If I can't get storage, then I may take a basin offline and use that as sludge storage. I
Oh.
just, at that point, I'll be thinking on my feet.
Okay, now that would be very smelly, right?
I would say, I would think,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay,
But I'd rather smell a little bit than put it to the river. Those are the kind of
That is-
decisions they're both bad. Which one do I do? I don't know, Sandy. I'm hoping
Well,
not to get there. I'll be an optimistic and say they'll have it up and running next week. I'm gonna go with that because I feel better. I feel a lot better with that than anything else I can think of. But I am thinking about it because you never know what's gonna happen.
well, at least you're thinking about it. You got some plan in place.
Absolutely.
Hopefully, we don't have to go to Plan C, which is that up in the air one at the moment.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
crazy. But that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Tonight.
Guy, can I drop back with you for just 1 second on the Great Hill? I was under the impression, and maybe I'm wrong, but I was under the impression that we had gallonage allocated for Great Hill. And that the process they're going through as far as the sale is concerned, they were going to be hooking everything up to
That's
sewer.
correct.
Is
Correct.
that in fact what's happening?
So the first phase, so what's that? The very first phase, Legacy bought the park. So they inherited everything. They bought everything. So they're doing the first phase and it's gonna be, I think it's Timberland and a couple down below that's Gravity. And we've approved it because they got 20,000. I think, I'm not so sure of those gallons. I think it's gonna be like 9,000 or 11,000. I forget the number. That's first phase. I got a call from Bob, the contractor says, hey, listen, Legacy indicates they may sell it, so they may not want to do any more. And that's why they asked me if I have a mandate that they must complete it. I said, the Board of Sewer Commissioners has no mandate. And then I called the Board of Health and Patrick said, all their systems there are failed, so I want them fixed and they need to go to sewer. So Patrick may issue the mandate. So if they in fact sell it, the new buyer owns that mandate, so they'll get their 20,000 gallons and they'll complete it.
Okay, they've already got the allocation. They've
Yes,
had
they
the
do.
allocation, so it's just a matter of whether they hook up or they don't hook up. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And they started it. when they bought, they start now. We get, I think it's Cheshire. I think they put 11 homes immediately online. Those are coming at us. We're seeing those now. And we're also seeing Kendrick Pump Station pumping like crazy. And then we're seeing it at Thatcher. Now they're going to do the Timberland, which is all grinder pumps. They'll have those online shortly. And he's going to continue on. He's got miles of force main to put in, etc. And he told me today that Legacy, the owner, may stop the project and sell it. And I'm like, and that's why I suggested, well, give us back our gallons. And then, but then again, that's why I added that piece. They're all failed and the Board of Health won't allow that.
So Patrick's
So I
in
don't
the
care who
middle
does
of the mix and he needs to come up with an answer on what
Yes,
they're
you're
gonna
right.
have to do to satisfy his requirements.
That's correct.
And if he
Because,
decides that they have to be hooked up to sewer, then we already have the gallonage allocated for them.
That's right.
Okay, so it doesn't become the
I
only,
made him aware of that.
okay, and the only place it becomes an issue for us now is the increased volume that the Kendrick Pump Station is gonna handle.
That's right. That's why I mentioned it, because that's part of the interceptor design.
Yeah, because we've had
We knew
a
this day
problem
was
with Kendrick
coming.
right along.
Yes, Kendrick's been a problem for a long time, but we knew this day was coming. And as I watch it come, I was getting nervous.
Yeah.
So we'll see the first phase of it, and we may not see the second for a while, because now they indicate they're going to sell it.
Okay, well, they've got
I
the
just want you to be
allocation,
aware.
and we'll have to see
The
what goes,
allocation is there.
have to see what happens, I guess.
I agree. I agree. I agree. Yeah, so that's all I have.
Okay. Okay, what do we have? Unfinished business. We've got the list of policies. Peter and I will get together this week and go over them, organize them, and start bringing in 3 a meeting and see if we can get them approved, handled, go through. Go ahead, Sandy.
Didn't we all approve them last meeting? We approved those policies in the last meeting.
We approved the ones that the selectmen threw out. As remember, they X'd out policies because they were no longer sewer commissioners, and those are ones that they passed as sewer commissioners. Decided they were no longer valid for them. And so we just reaffirmed them for us.
Okay.
That's all.
Can you
And
talk to us about a meeting that you and another sewer commissioner had in Swiss Beach with Judy Whiteside?
No.
You won't talk about it.
Well, I'll talk about it to the standpoint that we are looking at alternative means for Swiss Beach. We have nothing that is concrete. There's nothing in place. There's nothing to get into a discussion about because the speculation runs rampant in this town, and I'm sick and tired of listening to the speculation, particularly when it comes to the sewer department, when people don't know. They know half of what they're talking about, but they talk. So I'm not going into any kind of detail on this yet until we have something more concrete and can do something definitive and give them a definitive answer. And unfortunately, at this point, we cannot.
One quick question. The town will buy the grinder pumps. No matter how many times I've read it, that it would be up to the residents to buy the grinder pumps. The town will buy the grinder pumps. The town will install the grinder pumps. It's up to the homeowner to have it connected to electricity if we do the existing plant. Is that the scope of it?
That's what it has been. That's what the scope of it has been.
I'm so tired of saying we'll be forced to buy our grinder pumps. That's never been.
Because they don't listen. That's
I
because
know.
you've got sensationalized reporting that doesn't have to have facts. All it has to have is something a talking point to run with. Makes no difference whether it's true or not. And
I just want to make sure I was understanding the issue with the grinder pumps. Okay, that's it.
but we are looking at an alternative, more than one. And unfortunately, with the balls in the air, we don't have them settled down to a point that we can do anything definitive. We have
And what's
approached the DEP. We've approached what's his name here? Just a second. From the papers.
Beta?
No.
What's the impact of the citizens article at town meeting?
We'll find out when we go to town meeting.
What's the impact if it passes?
You'll have to ask Bowen. I don't know.
Because we have a signed contract, correct?
We
They
didn't
have the
sign it.
right to bring up a petition. It's a citizen's petition and it goes. What happens to it? We'll find out at town meeting.
Well, is there any way that we can talk about what is the ramification if it passes or doesn't pass? What happens to our
I have no
contract?
idea what the ramifications are because I don't know whether or not, if it passes, whether it's a valid article to begin with. I don't even know that.
Okay. Should we as sewer commissioners be able to respond if someone asks the questions, what is the impact if this citizens article passes? Can we have identified a response if we're asked on town meeting floor?
As soon as I can find out something from Bowen on that, yeah. At the moment, I'm not going to fly from the hip on this. I don't know. I just don't know
Okay,
what that
so
even does.
Your answer is, Sandy, I'm going to be looking into what could happen if this passes on town meeting floor and the article is accepted by the Attorney General. I just want to make sure that we're doing something to be able to respond to a question on town meeting floor. What's the impact if this is passed? And your answer is you're saying you're going to be talking to Rich Bowen on it.
Yeah, I've got to. I mean, he's going to be the expert on what the potentials are, and then we'll go from there. That's all we can do. I mean, if it's a valid article that has a potential to be passed, and it's something that would be in effect, then we've got to look at something. But what I don't know. But if it's an invalid article, why waste the time talking about it? And this, I don't know. I don't know which is which, or if. So, I'm just not gonna get gray hairs over trying to figure that one out until I hear from him. We've also talked with Senator Pacheco to try to get some help from him, because to do anything in that Swiss Beach area, we do have all these asbestos pipes, and that becomes an issue. Alternatives have been suggested. How valid any of them are, we don't know at the moment, but it's not that we're not looking, because we're looking daily. But again, without having something concrete to be able to discuss on what, where, and why, and how, and when, it's everything speculation. So, and I think we've had enough of that already. So, any new business?
I have nothing.
Okay, Mac,
Nothing tonight.
Sandy,
Nothing.
okay. Anything not reasonably anticipated? Nothing I have.
Nothing.
Okay, our next meeting will be the 23rd, 6:30.
You back, Sandy?
Yes,
Okay, so it'll be at Marion, at Multi-Service Center.
we'll be Zoom or live.
live.
Okay.
If done, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:25.
Do I have a
Second,
second? I'm sorry, do I have a second?
second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye,
Sandy, Peter,
yes, yes.
Jim,
Yes.
aye, all around.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. What else do I
Good
have?
night, everybody. Thanks. Be safe.